All right, good evening, everyone. Before we get rolling, if we could have everyone just kind of slide this way. You have to come to the front of the room. I have to tell a little story. When we set up, there was probably another 50 chairs. I guess I overshot the number that I thought was going to be here, but we're trying to make it a little bit cozier, and this will probably be the only time I use the microphone. But if we could, if everyone could kind of just come closer, and then you can hear Glenn and the rest of the crew. And we'll start in a little bit.
Find the shady spot.
Set it on the corner. That's good. Got it. Gotta run the thing on. Yeah, no problem.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this absolutely gorgeous night. It's fun to be here and to see so many people. So thank you also for moving forward a little bit. It just makes it so much more homey and family-like when we are sitting a little bit closer. Just for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lane Larson, and I'm the superintendent of schools here in Brainerd. And this has just been the most fun opportunity to meet with staff and with our parents from each of our schools, and to be able to come and have these listening sessions with you. And so it's fun to be at Lowell tonight. I want to tell you just a little bit about how the evening's going to run. Tonight I'm so excited because Corey Reynolds has agreed to take the very first portion of our presentation tonight. And she's going to talk for about 10 to 15 minutes about where the district has been the last 2 years in the planning process for the facilities to gather information for the big picture of what the needs are within the district. When she's done, then I'm going to come back to the microphone and I'm going to talk a little bit about where we plan to go and what our process is as we move forward with this planning process. When we're done, we'll have a little opportunity for some questions. And then I'm going to turn it over to Glenn Chido from Foster Jacobson Johnson. And he's going to lead us in a really fun activity listening session to hear about what you believe the exciting and great strengths of Lowell Elementary are. And he's also going to talk about some of the challenges and what advice he would give the district as we move forward in this process. So with that, I want to say thank you very much for coming. It's just a pleasure to have such a beautiful turnout tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to Corey.
Thanks, Lane. Again, Corey Reynolds, Director of Community Education for Brainerd Public Schools. And I'm standing in tonight for our business manager, Steve Lund. I and others in the room have been on this facilities journey with Steve and our students and our staff and our community for the last 2.5 years. And I'm excited to be here to share, and I'm excited because I get to skip soccer practice with my kids to be here, so thank you for that. This process, as I said, 2.5 years. It has felt a little bit painstaking at times, but I think all good things take time. And I know every person who's been involved in this process wants the very best for our students. So it's worth it, I think, even if it has aged me. It's okay, I'll be okay. So before I really get into numbers and all that, again, as Lane said, I'm going to talk about where we've been these last couple years, and then she'll take over and talk about where we're going. But first I want to talk a little bit about why we're here. Because this is it. I think these are some of your very own Lowell students. And when I look at this picture, I see my own kids, my very own kids. They're also Brainerd Public School children. And so for me and for lots of others on the board and administration, and certainly among the teaching staff and the rest of the staff, this process isn't just our work, it's personal. So we are here for all of our kids. Our mission statement says that we provide the highest quality programs and resources for for these people right here, and that's our focus. It has been from the beginning, and as long as I'm involved, and I'm sure as long as Steve and Lane and Todd and everyone else are involved, that will continue to be the focus. These guys right here. Tonight we're also going to take this opportunity to share some information that we've learned as we've dug into these buildings and through this process. And we hope to also gather some feedback from you so that we can turn that over to our school board and they have the best information available to make the best decisions for our students again. So then, what have we learned? What has this process consisted of so far? It's gathering information and understanding it. So the first step, of course, we needed to get some demographic and enrollment information. We got Hazel Reinhardt, she's a former state demographer, total numbers cruncher. She put together a demographic study for us to give us an idea of who is coming to our schools and who we can expect in the near future. Really important when we're trying to project and think about the future of these buildings. We also need to know the capacity of our schools. We know the number of buildings, we know teachers, we know all that, but really, how many can we serve in these buildings? We need to check that out. And then finally, the condition of these buildings. What do they look like? And we have had engineers in these buildings, in, around, on top of, underneath, poking up through the ceiling, I'm sure, drilling down into the ground, looking at every corner of these buildings to really understand what condition they're in and how they're operating. So what do we find, you may be wondering? Here it is. So again, these are the results of our demographic study. You can see the blue dot represents where we were in 2005 when Hazel Reinhardt did the study. The red line represents what her low projection would be for low growth, slow, if you will. So just under 0.5%. That middle line then would be the medium. You know, things went well, it was looking good. You know, not too fast, not too slow, but medium. That's that. Then the yellow line is the really aggressive projection. If things got really exciting and things started to, take off here in Brainerd, that's what we might be looking at. For our purposes, we've kind of walked that middle road and we've used that middle projection, that medium size growth for our purposes. Our business manager prides himself on his conservatism. The worst insult you could give him would be that he's too aggressive or too liberal. So he feels really good right in that mid zone. And we'll go there too with him, I guess. So you can see over the next 10 years or so, we're looking at just under 500 student growth, or 0.7%. So not explosive growth, manageable, but it's going to take some planning. We have to think about it. But again, we have time, we have options, we can be thoughtful in how we move forward. So then this gives you a snapshot of our capacity at our schools, and I want to start from the bottom up with this. So you see at our high school, current enrollment, a little under 1,900, our current capacity, 2,000. We're good on capacity at our high school. That's not really the issue at the high school. I think the bigger issue at the high school might be the question of, do we really want 4 grades in 2 buildings? With all the duplication of services that includes, with the idea of students going back and forth across a busy street every hour of the day. Is that really what we want? We'll talk more about that later, but you can see here that capacity is not our issue at the high school. We get to the middle school, and again, capacity is not our issue there. Forest View is our newest school in our fleet, about 14 years old. It was a solid process. You built it big enough. I wasn't here yet, so I can't take credit. Built it big enough, and it's working very well for those students. And we have room to comfortably grow and meet the demand that we will face in the coming years. However, then you get to elementary, and you see we're already in a pickle, and I bet here at Lowell you know all about this. So you see our current capacity, and capacity is based on what the Minnesota Department of Ed recommends for square footage for students, for classrooms, gyms, cafeterias, all that stuff. So this is what MDE says we can comfortably accommodate. On the top there, you can see what we are now accommodating. I'll just give you a minute to let that sink in. You can see also if we are projecting that middle kind of medium-paced growth, we have an issue. We have an issue already. We're already starting 300 students behind the starting line with this growth. We're already room for 300 students in the hole right now, and really we need to be thinking about room for an additional 475 students. So capacity is certainly an issue at elementary school. Because I'm the community ed director, I have to talk about preschool. You don't see preschool in here. We might want to do some things more or different. We have fantastic preschool programs for our 3 and 4-year-olds. My personal dream, I haven't mentioned this to the school board, is that we would get to serve more of them, but we don't have the room. So that's not even here. So we'll move on then. Oh, I love this. Does this look familiar? So this is a picture of a classroom circa maybe 1938 when this fine building was built. This is what school looked like, right? Probably very familiar to most of us in this room. We sat in rows and we looked at the teacher, and she, always is she, dispensed all the knowledge that we needed to learn. And so that's what these buildings, especially ones of the Lowell vintage, that's what they were created for. That's what they were built to accommodate. Well, just last week, this picture was taken in this very school. You can see this is a very different learning environment. We have students doing different things. We have a small group here, larger groups there. The teacher is milling around. She's no longer the depositor of information into the empty vessels that are students. She and he are now facilitating learning among the students. And I'm sure many of you have been in classrooms volunteering, because I know how active the PTA is here, and you probably have seen how challenging it is to do this kind of instruction in a space that was made for this. And I've heard Todd talk about what the teachers here and parents want for students to be able to do this. And because of our space and capacity issues, we've ended up with this. So when I look at this, I see a teacher office / small group instruction space / maybe some, I don't know, a little sensory room. We have these multi-use spaces that are used by more people than can comfortably fit for more purposes than anyone ever intended them to be. And in some schools, I bet here too, we have spaces within spaces. So the media center is carved up for offices or other classrooms, or there's a timeout room within a timeout room. We have all that kind of good stuff. And then there's this. Here's the media center. Judy's beautiful media center happens to be book fair time. I don't know how this motivates our students to develop a level of reading and learning when we have to move 18 boxes before they can get to the books and hope that none of them fall on them and bury them. But this is what we can do with what we have. All right. Well, it's always helpful to compare ourselves with what others are doing, others like us. So our business manager loves to pull these districts because he calls these our comparable districts. These are districts that look like we are. They're our same size, they have our similar demographics. And so you can see here how our space in elementary school matches up to theirs. And that box up there in the corner, that's those Minnesota Department of Education guidelines. They're just guidelines, but that's what MDE says we should probably give students of this age. So, 125 to 155 square feet, and you can see where we are in Brainerd. Right at the bottom. Not a super comfortable place for us to be, because that's just not who we are. So you have to wonder then, what are others like us doing about this situation? Well, let me show you. Here's Bemidji. They're going to build something. Here's Moorhead. They're going to build something too. Sauk Rapids, also right there with us, they're going to build something, and I hear rumors that something in Sauk Rapids is coming too. So this is how, oh dear. The facade almost fell. So you can see this is how some districts are choosing to meet the challenges that some are also facing. So here then is just a snapshot of our whole district. You guys know Lowell, this is the whole district. We're dealing with 516 square miles. We have 12 facilities that run about 1.2 million square feet. So hats off to our custodians. Thank you, sir. They do a wonderful job. They've kept these buildings beautiful. They're tight. There's too many kids in them, but they're beautiful still. They're in good shape because our custodians and Earl make sure that they get taken care of. And all of that square footage sits on 89 acres of land. So no small task to deal with these things and manage them. Let's talk again a little bit about the age of the whole district now. So you can see Washington Building. It's the oldest building in the fleet. I like calling it a fleet. It makes it sound like boats. And then we went through several decades of building every 10 to 15 years. We got to the high school, the new high school. Anyone here it's still called that? It's almost 50 years old, but it's still new. That's great. And then we took a break for about 35 years before we built our next school. Steve, business manager again, crunched the numbers. It's going to take centuries to replace the whole fleet at that 35-year replacement cycle timeline. Centuries. Centuries our students will be packed in like sardines. So then here we have the average age comparison. So again, helpful to see what others who are like us are doing with this kind of information. So you see, here's Alexandria and Sartell where they've recently built, and then there we are bringing up the rear. You got to wonder then what Wilmer's right there with us. What are they doing? Oh, I forgot. Let me show you this one. Here you see Pequot and Pillager on here. They're not comparable to us, of course not. Not even close. But they are competitive with us. They steal our students. We steal a few of theirs, but not as many as we'd like. But they are built recently. So then we're back to wondering, okay, Wilmer is like us, what are they doing? Here we go. Another new school. Not a field house though. So then we get to the conditions of our building and what kind of future maintenance they need. You can see we're looking at a renewal and update of our structures and systems that are getting to the end of their life. And we know how painful and kind of sad it is to prolong life when it's time to let go. We have several deficiencies that the district doesn't have the funds to address. We have accessibility problems. Not here anymore, thank goodness. We were able to do what it took to make this building accessible for students who needed it. But don't try to go into Harrison if you're on crutches or in a wheelchair. Can't do it. Not accessible, there's not a ramp. It's a problem. There are other schools where the bathrooms are too small, the doorways are too small. We're just not ADA compliant. I'd like to point out too that this relates to what we're able to do in those buildings because I believe you can't go over a threshold of construction and remodeling, a certain dollar amount, without bringing the whole building up to code for ADA. So we're kind of locked in. As Earl, I think, was showing me around Harrison the other day, and he said, there is nowhere to put an elevator in this building. We can't do what we did here at Lowell, at Harrison, without losing 5 classrooms, something we do not have at Harrison. And then, of course, roof spoilers, air handlers, window panes, paving, tuck pointing. We love to talk about tuck pointing. We need miles of it. 5 miles at South Campus? Or also something great. 5 miles of tuck pointing in one building. And you don't even know what that costs. Tuck pointing. There it is. Sorry. Can you imagine? 5 miles. Roofs. And I should point out too the scale of these issues. If you have in your home to replace your roof, what is that, like $5,000? To do a roof like this, $3 million? 5 million. I mean, it's exponential, the difference between what it costs residentially and in a building that like Forest View has something like 3 acres of roof. It's a lot. 5 acres. That frightening thing is a boiler, in case you were wondering, right, Earl? It makes so much noise, you can't hear yourself think, and that room is probably 1,000 degrees. It's like standing on the sun with a train coming at you because it's so noisy. What you can't see in this picture, I think this is at Nisswa, but at Harrison in their boiler room, they store stuff down there. It's like the laminators down there, the science kit. Oh, here too. Yeah, that's fun, huh? Yeah, but you just want to laminate the world when it's that hot. Oh, and then the parking lots, the pavement. So we have all this to do, windows, and it costs a lot. And if we fix it all, there will be not one thing that we notice different for our kids in the classroom. Not one new piece of technology, not one new item of curriculum, not one new innovative teaching method or project. They won't get rained on, so that's good. And the tuck pointing will be awesome. So here's our maintenance costs broken out by building. No surprise, Forest View, our newest building, is there on the end. It's $1.1 million. That's things that you would expect that a building with thousands of people in and out of every day would need. Paint, carpet, just those regular upkeep items. And you come all the way down here, Washington, our oldest building. It's huge, so no surprise that it needs that amount of work. What's interesting then is the next slide. It breaks this down by square footage. This makes it a little bit different picture, doesn't it? Again, no surprise, Forest View's down there on the end. $3 a square foot. I got $3. I mean, it seems like no big deal. You start coming down here to Lincoln and Harrison. Here you have our most mature buildings, I'll say it that way. Most mature and smallest buildings, and we have this kind of cost staring at us to fix them up. So as we're going through this, we're imagining solutions to these issues that are facing us. We're trying to discover opportunities. Where might there be an opportunity to do something different? And each building, we're finding, has some combination of these 5 aspects that it needs, according to the experts and according to the community who took a deep dive on this stuff. Some of them need right sizing. Lowell, maybe one of the buildings that's got 400 kids in it, and MDE says about 350 can fit in here comfortably. So we need that kind of determining how many kids can actually fit in the building, to make sure the gym works well, to make sure the cafeteria works well, to make sure the media center is adequate. That's right sizing. And we need that in some buildings. Then we have renewal. This is the paint, maybe some new furniture, just the refreshing, the remodeling. Some of these buildings are in great shape, and they're gonna carry us through for the next 50 years and more. They just maybe need a little bit of love in the form of renewal. Then there's reinvestment, and this really is about, might there be, what new could we do with a building? What new way could we use it? So for instance, the high school, if we decide as a community that no, we don't want our high school students in 2 campuses with all that duplicated service and students walking back and forth with those gigantic backpacks so many times a day, then that's going to take a significant reinvestment into the high school to make it work for that number of students. There's repurposing. Some of these buildings have some life left in them, but maybe not for what they're being used right now. My preschooler has attended Baxter for 2 years, and you may be aware that it is what feels like mere steps from a major highway. We've been bordered on the backside by a cemetery, and houses on one side and a gas station on the other. Not my favorite location personally for an elementary school, but there might be other programs or students that could use that building in a new way perfectly. So repurposing is an idea. And then there are some places where we may need to think about recreating a community. the school is not the building, right? The school is the people, the relationships that students and parents and community members have with the staff and the teachers and the principals. We can recreate spaces to make that kind of community happen. So, like I said, some mixture of these exists in almost all of our building. And I think what we want to do here tonight is figure out what the right mix is. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lane.
Thanks, Corey. Let's give her a hand. She did great. She's pinch hitting today, and we spoke this morning at Sertoma, and it was the first time, and fabulous job. Thank you so much. And you can tell that she was actively involved in the process the last couple of years when they've been looking at the big picture regarding our district. And for many of you who are also part of that process, I want to say thank you, because we really have a great overview of what the needs are regarding the 12 buildings in our district. But when I came in July, the Board of Education said, okay, we have this big umbrella plan, I like to call it, that we actually approved in October, that the umbrella of needs, basically, and that the work was done at that point. And they said, now where do we go from here? How do we know what the priorities are and how to get to a point where we can make some decisions? And so in November, one of the things that I brought to the board was the idea of taking our facility plan and all of the needs that we had and trying to set a 6-phase process to move forward in which to talk about each of these issues. There were a couple of things that we wanted to keep in mind all the time. Always, as Corey said right at the beginning, we always want to keep in mind that anything that we do regarding our district, it puts our children at the very forefront of all of our decision making. What is the education that we're going to be able to provide the kids in our district? And when we're looking through this process and we're trying to figure out what the priorities are as we move forward, we need to be able to count on the fact that we're looking at facilities that will provide the opportunities, the innovation, and the success that we want for all of our learners as they go through the Brainerd system. And so we started talking about, if we talk as far as what our objectives are, what are the things that we want to make sure that we're always keeping at the forefront when we're making these decisions? We first of all want to start ensuring the fact that we have safety and security addressed in all of our buildings, so that when our children come to school, when our staff comes to school, when our guests come and visit our school, and everyone is here, that we're ensuring that we have done everything that we can to provide safe and secure environments for everyone involved. The second thing that we want to talk about, and that I believe Corey did a beautiful job tonight, addressing the mechanical needs that we have in our school district. The HVAC systems, the boilers, the roofs, the windows, and all of those kinds of areas. But we also want to talk about the educational adequacy. What kind of a learning environment is there? Is there dehumidification so that on those really super hot days that our kids have a conducive environment in which to learn? So looking at those mechanical efficiencies are really an important piece of this. The third bullet that you can see up here is space that fosters best practice instruction in 21st century learning. And she showed some beautiful slides just of pictures of kids in action and kids learning. And we need to think about, what do these spaces need to be as we move forward in the 21st century. One of the things I like to talk about is that we are already 17 years into the 21st century. We're almost a quarter of the way through it. And I like to think about what education was like even back in 2000 as compared to today. How all of our standards have changed, all of the technology that has come about. It's just been unreal what's happened in the last 17 years. And so if we even take the next 17 years, what will that look like? And do the spaces that we have, are they conducive and flexible enough that we're going to be able to adjust to the needs that we have as we progress through the 21st century? The fourth bullet talks about providing spaces, robust spaces that enhance each of our 4As that we talk about a lot through the Education Foundation. Looking at the academics, the athletics, the arts, and the activities, and do we have the spaces that are going to provide the robust needs that we have in each of those areas. The next bullet talks about community collaboration, ownership, and workforce development. One of the things that we've talked about at the board level is that we really want to make sure that we're collaborating in this process, because our schools belong to all of us. We're like one big family, and we want people that when they come to Lowell or any of the schools that they come to, that everybody feels welcome and that we feel that we belong, and that every single learner that enters our doors knows that this is a safe place where they know that they belong and that they're important. One of the other things regarding this bullet that our business partnerships talk to us a lot about is the workforce shortage that we have, not only here in the Brainerd School District, but really throughout the state of Minnesota. But we know that we raise and we educate and we graduate the best and the brightest students in the state of Minnesota. And we want to do everything that we can to ensure that we are giving our children the workforce-ready skills that they need to go into the workforce and fill the jobs that we have, or that we give them the skills that they can be successful at CLC or another 2 or 4-year college, and in hopes that they're going to come back and be the contributing members that help to carry on this wonderful community. And so those workforce development skills are really important from birth all the way through their education in our district. The next one I talked a little bit about is providing the visionary technology that we need. We know that our children are being raised in a really different world than, I know for sure, than I was being raised in. I hardly knew about a computer even until I graduated from high school and started college. And now our kids have, handheld devices globally throughout the world. Children are being raised with internet and with technology at their fingertips. And our kids now have to be competitive with kids throughout the world. And so what kind of technology integration are we ensuring that our kids have the skills and the strategies for using? Transparency, engagement, and community trust building. We really appreciate each and every one of you coming out here tonight to share with us what you believe the strengths of our building and our district are, and also what you believe some of the challenges are as we move forward. And so we want to continue to have this dialogue so that when we get to a point that the board feels that they have the information that they need to provide the best plan that we can go forward to the voters with. And the final bullet on this sheet is the highest quality education for our taxpayers' generous investment. We all know that any time that you come forward with any kind of a bond referendum or an operating levy referendum within a school district, that to say yes or to vote and to support that referendum really is a generous gift from our community. And we want you to know that we do not take that for granted, and the board is committed to finding the right plan so that it's something that everybody feels comfortable with, and if we are successful, that when the changes happen or the building occurs or the repurposing occurs, that everybody feels really good about the decision that was made and that it was a community partnership focused on the education and the facilities within our district. So how are we going to go about meeting these 8 objectives? In November, I brought forth something that I call the 6-phase process. I brought it forth to the board because I felt that there were really 6 steps to getting there. First of all, an extensive communication process, and I'll go through each of these in detail, but I'll just highlight them real quick. The second one is that I really believe that we need to have more listening sessions. We need to hear from the employees in our district because they are the experts that are using these spaces right now with our children, and how is it working for them now, and as education changes, how will these spaces be flexible in that process. And we want to hear from our community. What do you believe are the strengths of our district? And what are some of the things that we need to take into consideration before any kind of a decision is made? The third phase is a phase that really the board will be responsible for. And if they feel that they need additional information to put together a plan that they feel that they can go to the voters with, there might be surveys and assessments that they decide that they want to look into to get more information. The fourth phase will be bringing all the information that we gather from phases 1 through 3, bringing it all together to look and to listen to what the community and our staff members have shared with us, and to develop a plan, and to develop that project scope with options and alternatives, and to decide what that plan is going to be. The fifth phase then would be to go to the voters, to have a bond referendum election process, and if successful, then we would go into the sixth phase, which is construction management services. In December, the district put together something called a request for quotes, where we were looking for people with professional expertise that could help us through these 6 phases, to help us develop what the right plan is to move forward with. And we were so thankful in January. We had just an awesome proposal brought forth to the district. And that proposal came from 3 different experts that put together the proposal together to help us move us forward. And we are really excited tonight. We have Glenn Chido here with Foster Jacobson Johnson representing them. Back here we have Kevin Dene here this evening representing Woodset Smith Knowlton. And also Krause Anderson was part of this proposal. These 3 different groups came together with just an awesome proposal to help us through this plan. In February, we approved these 3 people working together to help us through phases 1 through 5. So let me take you through those 5 phases and what we think that looks like at this time. The first phase has to do, as I said, with an extensive communication process. Communication, what we want to make sure that we're doing is communicating an educational vision and how it's going to affect the academic achievement of all of our children as they go through our school district. We also want to ensure through our communication system that we're providing our residents with all of the information and answers to questions that they have regarding our school district and the facility project. So we decided we're going to do this a number of different ways. We're going to use many means for getting the word out and trying to make sure that people feel informed with this whole process. We're actively involved in meeting with the newspaper, with the radio. We're sending many pamphlets home. We're doing some of the traditional things that we do within our school to communicate with our families and our parents. And we're also doing an extensive process using social media, because we know that there's a lot of people that communicate also through the internet. And so we have started a new website called Blueprint 181, Investing, Growing, and Leading. And if you go to blueprint181.org, you will be able to see all of the documents that we are using and that the board has approved. We're going to be having, and we already do actually, have question and answers. So when questions come up at these listening sessions, I know Carla Sand, our communications director, is writing down the questions and putting the answers on the website. Any kind of information that you might want or need should be accessible right on that website, so we encourage you to use it. Good communication will begin from the very first day, and like I tell people all the time, it goes on forever. You know, communication is just something that's part of who we are at Brainerd Public School. The second phase has to do with the listening sessions, and I see so many staff here tonight, and I want to say thank you for coming again tonight to be here to help share what it's like to work here at Lowell. But we've been doing a number of listening sessions. I'll start with the first one, the education-based listening sessions, where we've been talking with teachers, administrators, support staff, and students. And I know as of the beginning of April, Glenn had told us that we had completed 44 listening sessions. And I know that the past couple of weeks they've been coming back and coming back with the information that was gathered during the first listening sessions and meeting with staff again. And this is just the beginning of the communication that we're going to be having with our staff internally within our district to keep that communication open. We also know that we want to hear from our public. And so these community listening sessions, these are kind of just the beginning of these listening sessions as well that we're going to have, because we want to hear what you think are the strengths in our district, what some of our areas of need are within the district, advice that you will give to the decision makers. I have a couple of board members, Sue Kern and Reed Campbell here tonight. What advice you would give those members of the board when they finally make a decision. And anyway, I'll let Glenn take you through that, but there's all kinds of fun questions that we're going to be getting that information from. And we intend to continue to meet with civic organizations, with neighborhood meetings, to talk with parents, business community partnerships, community members throughout the entire process and thereafter. The third phase, as I told you a little bit ago, is really a phase that the board will have to decide what additional information they need. They're going to get a lot of information through listening sessions and the communications piece, but they may also want to know some additional information, like on the next screen, some of the polling information, some of the voter profile analysis. One thing that they may want to do is a survey of the community. And there's a number of ways that boards can do surveys. Some of them are telephone surveys where they'll call like 500 different families and ask a series of 30 to 50 questions. There's some surveys that are done online that people can answer. There's some that are done by mailing out a survey and asking people to mail them back. But it'll be up to the board what kind of additional information they need so that they can make the right decisions moving forward. They may also, I think we have a really good report on our demographic data and enrollment data, but if they have any further questions, we may look into that a little deeper, or we may do something with GIS student mapping to see where the growth is of our students within our school district and community, to make sure that if we are adding space somewhere, that we're adding it at the right place, where the children are within the district and where the families are moving in and we see in the future. Another thing that we're going to be doing, and we're already actually working on it at the district level, Steve Lund and I had a meeting this week with some people from FJJ to really talk about a very thorough and detailed financial analysis of our plan. We want to look at current budget codes and budget line items and how we can readjust, like our health and safety or our deferred maintenance or some of those different funds that we have within our district, and how we might be able to use some of our existing finances to help address some of the issues within our buildings. We also will talk about just a really thorough look at the financial pieces, what kind of a tax information, like with Forest View and such right now, but we'll be looking at all kinds of different details before any kind of a decision is made regarding the finances. But it will be extensive and very detailed, and we will have the information that people need regarding the financial piece when the plan is decided. The fourth phase is the phase where we take all of this information from the first three phases and we move it up from those three companies through the administration and the facilities committee and on to the school board. And some of the things that the board will be looking at then is they'll be looking at project costs and budgeting. They'll be quantifying and comparing operating costs and some of the savings for instance, if we do new windows in some of the buildings, what kind of an energy efficiency savings might there be? We can also look at what are some of the plans for the existing facilities, like Corey talked about. Possibly potential site selection or property acquisition if we need something like that. Again, we'll be looking at the financial impact for our taxpayers. The board will be determining a project timeline that this could be completed in, and also if a bond referendum is passed, what would transition planning look like? Once the board makes a decision and they take all of that information together, they're going to make a decision on what we move forward with to the public. And that moves us into the 5th phase, which actually is the bond election process. During that process, the board will determine a number of things. First of all, what is a possible date that we might have an election or that we'll go to the voters and ask for support for our facilities? We get asked that question just about every day, about when do you think this is going to happen, or what do you think will happen? And the answer is we don't know for sure until we collect all the information. The one thing that I do share with people, though, is that I think it would be fairly safe to say that we will have some kind of a plan that we'll move forward with within the next year. It might be less than that, but I would say it'll be pretty close within that year that would be a safe time to say. Another thing that we need to do is that we need to encourage the public review, and we would need to take all of this information and the plan that the board decides and go back to the public many times to answer the questions that you have and to give a very accurate assessment of what the tax impact would be for homeowners and business owners and such within our community. We also would have to submit a plan to the Minnesota Department of Education called a review and comment, which is an extensive detailed outline of what the plan is exactly, and we need to get approval of that. And then we would also have to develop what the ballot question or the questions would be. Is there going to be one question on the ballot, or might there be several questions on the ballot? That'll all be decisions that the board will have to make during the 5th phase. Now, these are the 5 phases that we're talking about right now that FJJ, Witsa Smith Nolting, and Kraus Anderson are helping to guide us through these processes. If, when we go to the voters, we do have a successful election, then we would move on to the 6th phase, the construction management, the timeline, what transitioning would be like if we're going to do some work in the buildings. But that would all be something that is outside of the agreement that we have with these people at this time, and that we would move forward with that phase at that time. And so this is where we're at. Like Corey said, she's been working with this for about 2.5 years, and this is where we hope to go, and this is the process and the phases that we intend to bring this process through to the public and through to our staff as we move forward. Are there any questions that you have? Yeah, yeah. Okay. I'd be very happy to do that. Mr. Campbell just asked me to reiterate the fact that the board has not approved a plan that we're moving forward with to the voters. There is nothing decided about what we're moving forward with to the voters. What they have agreed to, though, is when Cunningham worked with the district, they gave us an umbrella view of if we did everything to all of the 12 facilities within the district, this is what the big picture might look like. And they have agreed that they finalized what their recommendations were to the school district. But what they asked me when I got here is, now we need to fine-tooth, we need to go through it and fine-comb it and prioritize what are the must-do items in each of the buildings, what are the should-do items in the buildings, and so on, because we know we can't do everything. We know we can't, but we do need to know for sure what the highest priority items are that we'll move forward with as we go through this 6-phase process. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions? Well, I think that was a perfect transition though, because now I'm going to turn it over to Glenn Scheidel, and he's going to find out, he's going to ask you some questions to help get some guidance on what you think about right here at Lowell Elementary School, and what you think of the Brainerd Public Schools as a whole, the entire district. So thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for being great listeners, and really have fun with this next process. I think that this is just a fun thing to do. So, Glenn?
Thanks.
You don't need it?
No,
Okay.
I've got this. Well, welcome on such a gorgeous, gorgeous night. Lane and Todd both told me that I've got about 3 hours to go through this. Not so much. All right. My name is Glenn Scheidel, and I'm a retired superintendent from Park Rapids, Minnesota. Retired about 6 years ago. I'm in my 6th year, I should say. But prior to that, I was a superintendent down in southern Minnesota at Renville County West, which is Renville, Danube, and Sacred Heart, that small district just south of Romer. But most of my time in education was up in Thief River Falls. Long before Lane ever showed up there. I started back up there in the 70s, actually started off as a 3rd grade teacher. And I kind of moved my way through the system, and I was a middle school principal, assistant superintendent, curriculum director, staff development, and as the story goes, and at least with most people in Thief River, I think they were actually moving me around to find a job I could actually do. But I spent 20-some years there. I coached also 3 sports. All 3 of my kids graduated from there, and so on and so forth. I came to this job, like I said, about 6 years ago. We did a fairly large project in Park Rapids for us anyway, and I was talking to my current boss about, do you have something available for me once I retire, so on and so forth. He did, and at this point in time, I don't know if this is a blessing or not, but I somewhat failed retirement because I retired on a Friday and I started working here on Monday. And I'm still, the good news is my marriage is still intact because I'm not at home bothering my wife on a regular basis because she's also retired. Lastly, and to move on from there, and I would be remiss if I didn't tell the story because I have told this story to all 40-some groups that I have met with. I have known Lane since the mid-'80s. We kind of came up through education in a sense, 2 different districts, but we came up through education at the same time. So I'm here to say, for any of you, I've known her for so long, I've got plenty of dirt on her, and so clearly, if you need something, I can be bought very cheap. Very cheap. That being said, we're going to get into the listening sessions, and yes, we have done these with many, many groups. Most of them have been with the staff at this point in time. Certainly, we've done some community ones, as we are going to do tonight. So as we meet with groups, I'm sort of the closing act, if you will, of this type of thing. But we're gathering the information, and it's been great up to this point in time. One other item that I would say, I don't know if anybody here has high school students of your own here, but we met with a group over at the high school, and they were phenomenal. And I mean that very sincerely. I've always enjoyed high school kids because they have no adult filter, and they tell you what they think. But they're respectful, and I want to say, and I've yet to find a group yet that is different than this, they're usually spot on with their thoughts. And so we had a great time when we were over there that day, but we have met with everybody. I'm going to ask you some open-ended questions. You didn't have to study for this test or anything like that. It's going to be fairly easy. If you wouldn't mind putting your name on the front part of the card. Now this is a good one. Which way is the front? But nonetheless, put it on the card if you wouldn't mind. And Mr. Sauer is going to help, and maybe Lane will help as far as picking up post-it notes over in this area, and I can handle this area. Are you two going to help us? Okay. What I'm going to do is ask you again some open-ended questions. Now, folks, there's no pressure in the sense that you don't have to write anything you don't want to. We hope you do, and that's part of the exercise. But if you choose to, please write your thought or your response on a post-it note. If you have multiple responses, write them on multiple post-it notes. If Jessica wrote something and Casey was going to write the exact same thing, do so. Because we look for frequency as well. So it's not a one and done kind of thing. But go ahead and you'll end up writing them on the post-it notes. We'll pick them up. We'll read them off. There may be cases where I might ask you, what did you mean by that? Only because if you kind of give me a generic statement, I want to get narrowed down to what specifically were you at. Lastly, FJJ has got a history of hiring retired educators. One of my partners in this process is a gentleman from Duluth. He's a retired principal, Eric Kaiser. He's helped as well with these. But they hire us, and they pay us by the Post-it note, folks. So I really need a lot of these if you want to know the truth. Because I got a pretty big grocery list that my wife gave me before I left home this morning. So please participate, and if you don't, you don't. Again, there's no pressure to this piece at all. Questions? If Glenn Chido was going to move to the area, and I got 10 kids, I got 3 of them, I'm having a hard time with that. But if I had 10 kids, and I wanted to enroll my kids in the Brainerd school system, and oftentimes, folks, this is how this all plays out. I might run into somebody on the street, or I would meet you somewhere, and I would ask you, what's good about the Brainerd school system? Why would I want to enroll my kids in this particular system? What would you tell me? What would be the great things that you would say that are currently happening in the Brainerd school system? Oh, you have one that doesn't work? You got plenty. Put it out in front of you, we will pick it up. We love the community feel of Lowell and the caring environment thanks to the staff. High academic expectations. Strong school pride. They got a great principal. Not, you got relatives over on this side? Great teachers.
Yeah, not just Lowell. You're talking about everything, not just Lowell, right?
Not just, yeah, I'm talking about everything. Brainerd School, you can write about Lowell if you want. We got caring teachers, got lots of choices with opportunities, sports clubs, etc. Awesome teachers. We got awesome teachers again, so caring. Caring administrators, Lowell teachers, principal and staff. Awesome community. I have to tell a little story. I'm a storyteller with this. The staff is pretty caring. Today I presented to them at about 3 o'clock. I don't know how many are exact same people that were in that. But we went through 3 laptops before it worked. Then, once we got that figured out, and I'm not anywhere comfortable with technology at all, that's why I'm not using PowerPoint. But nonetheless, once we got that worked, I think Mr. Sauer set me up because it was a touch board. So every time I got my hand close, things were moving, and everybody thought it was pretty funny. And then, of course, it would go off the screen and things of that nature. College in the school. AP, we got caring, committed staff and community again. Blue Ribbon Schools. We have excellent educational opportunities, school pride, clubs and activities. Keep going here. Dedicated staff. You guys can go ahead and read if you want as well.
Okay, pride in the community, athletic opportunities, awesome numbers in a variety of activities, music, the arts, and sports. A variety of athletic activities or opportunities, excellent staff, neighborhood facilities with various schools, the teaching staff, phenomenal staff. You think they're getting lots of kudos. They do so much with.
That's because they knew the questions ahead of
Oh,
time.
they do so much with so little. Academic excellence, great teachers and staff, and Orton Gillingham.
Got Blue Ribbon Schools again, effective educators. We've got staff that cares, invested parents, involved parents, excellent, or teachers excellent, school, I'll get it right here. Going into business needs in the community. Great teachers and administration, high quality. You must have paid some people. You had to do this administration. We might throw that one off. Hey, high quality educators and staff. We got great history in our community. We got no graduates that are successful. Great opportunities. Many clubs, sports opportunities. Stay with it, Reed. Great fine arts. Additions, remodels should be done in chunks so as not to shock the building trades and those paying for it We got to do everything to keep and replace schools and residential areas. Something about crazy. Clubs and activities, variety of learning tracks in the high school to meet needs of all students, APs, pathways, etc. We got a variety of arts for older students. Choir, lots of school spirit, involved principal. That's enough time. Is your wife in the crowd here?
I've been over the corner.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you must take it all in back in. Yeah. I can tell you right. I've seen it.
He's got post-it notes.
I know. It's tough to get good help nowadays. Fun and extras, parade, walkathons, games, track and field and days, community pride and support, wide variety of academic opportunities, choices for activities, buildings kept up well considering age. Easy on the age thing, folks. I'm a little sensitive to that myself. Teachers are knowledgeable educators that are valued and kids and parents. Teachers take time to build relationships and know the families. We've got community schools, real small town, schools within the neighborhood, excellent teachers and receptive to parent cooperation and input, family feel in school, Blue Ribbon award-winning schools, students kids are thought of first, award-winning schools. I wonder when my throat's going to go here. Devoted teachers. We have passionate leadership. We have literacy coaches. How are you doing, Reed?
Good.
Dedicated staff. Is that throwing them on the ground? Yeah, well, those school board people, you gotta watch them. Full-time gifted program at the elementary level, the only one in outstate Minnesota. Music, sports activities at all levels, JA opportunities, staff that go above and beyond for families in need.
We have one beautiful little student here, Izzy, and she wrote really good teachers.
All right. Yes, thank you. Awesome PTA, great application of technology. Not to be morbid, but many of the old. Whoops, wait a minute. I'm reading two different ones at the same time. Not that old comment, really. Not to be morbid, but many of the old schools, including Whittier and Franklin, were fallout shelters. This cannot be dismissed in these times. Supportive parents, strong PTAs, grads who go far, underlined, highly qualified, enthusiastic, caring teachers, high level of academic achievement, blue ribbon schools, graduation rate, high expectations, safe, mostly, environment for students with food allergies. Anything else? Okay, so I'll take 10. No, I'll be, okay, anything else? Anything else? One thing in the fact that I read that last one about safety, and I've acknowledged this in the other groups that I've met with, every school that I was in, and I was in several in the district, obviously security and that type of thing is an important piece of what's going on here. And that's a variety of need at most of the schools. But I can say safely, and Lowell was included in this, when I came in the building, even when I had my little sticker on that said visitor, I had people asking me repeatedly, who are you? What do you need? Can I help you? So on and so forth, no matter where I went. Now, I don't know if that was my criminal past or they just decided it. But all the schools, quite frankly, were very, very good about that. And so even though I had the nice clipboard and I had my shirt on and all that kind of stuff, people were asking me what was going on. Last story with this, honestly, folks, this is the first time it ever happened in Garfield. I walked in, had my shirt on, but unfortunately, Mrs. Kennedy wasn't there. Now, I've known Jody Kennedy for a long time. We lived close to each other in Detroit Lakes back in the day. Anyway, the secretary wouldn't let me go around the school. And I said, I'm Glenn Chido, I know Jody, and so on. And she was not going to let me go anywhere. She wanted to see my driver's license. Of course, where's my checkbook and all that's out in the car. So now I'm pulling my phone out, showing her emails with my name on it, trying to be able to walk around the school. And thank God, Jody walked in a few minutes later, but she wasn't going to let me go anywhere. Which, again, I give her credit for that. Didn't matter what I said, what it said here, but nonetheless. All right, let's look at the next piece. And these questions that you're being asked are very, very much the same, if not identical, to the questions we asked across across the district in a lot of cases. What are our challenges that we face in the Brainerd school system? Now, you can make it site specific if you want, or you can talk about across the district. But what's the challenges? And every district has them. What's our challenges? You got space. Oh my goodness, let's see, which one is this? Oh, space, lack of space, overcrowded, old building, capital outlay to maintain current assets. We've got class size, technology, space issues. Lunch, gym are too short of time due to needing the space for next class. We've got lack of space again. Changing taxpayer-based demographic. We've got middle school class sizes too large. We've got space for learning. We've also got space again. Space in buildings, proper learning space. Old buildings, lack of space. Supportive community, they share ideas, PTA. Thank you. No storage. No parking. Age of buildings. We're going to make you actually do something. There we go. Crowded buildings. Secure entrances. Not enough space. Space for all of our learners. Now I'm going to make the assumption that you're talking about this building when I'm reading spacing. Sorry. Is that fair? Just want to make sure that, and I'm not trying to be funny with this, but sometimes we got to make sure. Okay. Age building, not enough space. We got security in buildings and playgrounds. Having, better security, too easy, easy initial access. We got more space again. We've got outdated buildings. Technology for students. Space, aged buildings, technology, storage, ADA, space.
Here we have funding, not enough time to meet all the requirements of learning, a variety of students' needs to be met, security.
Okay, having enough space again, aging buildings, playground, gym, need more updating and room. We got non-secure entrances and playground, safe bus rides, no monitors. Oh boy, I'm gonna buy the whole store on my way. Not enough time for lunch again. We have buildings not conducive for 21st century learning, not enough storage space. You need to pull that off and just start another sheet. You can do that. Security. Got not enough classroom space again. Old buildings again. Low-income families. Basement classrooms, insufficient air exchange. We have, come on, there we go. Security to enter the building. Teacher collaboration. Support for teachers, dollars and space. Space again. Gym availability. Challenging students who need to be challenged. Safe entrances. No safe entrance. Again, these are all challenges I'm reading, folks. We got no storage. We got class size increasing. Maybe I should have just said one posted over. No, I'm just kidding. I know. But I'm going to be hungry when it's all done. Inadequate classroom. We've got continued technology improvement. Green space. Comfortable learning environments. Inadequate spaces for classrooms. Classroom sizes. You guys are doing a good job of finding out. No room for growth. Space again. Space. We got lift out of order. Sped space is not adequate. Could use more community mentors in our building. We got basement classrooms, not enough resources to keep up with innovation. No breakout areas. No foreign language options until 8th grade. Only one foreign language option at the high school. Not having to teach to the average. Support for all learners, high average and challenged learners. Parking, pickup, Lowell FMS, what?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We need something stronger than that. High school, others. Secure entrance. Number of students in classes. Keep up with technology. Need better security.
Comes up all the time.
Thank God I brought a whole path. We got windows that don't open with a little frown face. At Westby, lack of active learning spaces. We've got long cross routes. Need better security again. No gifted program in the middle school. Needs of gifted students are not being met at Forest View. Long bus rides, already said that one. Lots of specialty classes. Need RNs in every building. Holy smokes. Lack of second language. Materials at elementary in parentheses. Class size too big. Yeah, dinner language. Space for nursing moms. Pumping room. Not enough volunteers at some schools. Lack of adult bathrooms, lounge area. Teachers expect to do a lot, underlined with every little dollars and people. Problem, parking, traffic view. Emergency exits blocked and storage. Old energy, inefficient buildings. Security. Come on. Gifted programs should be expanded with size of district. Need quality buildings to help recruit families to the Brainerd area. Natural light. Keep up with the rest of the world. Space. Here we go. High school too large. Yeah, it says high school too large. Keep putting, excuse me, I just keep, there we go. Space, like I said that one. Parking. Keep putting up Band-Aids. Yeah, Band-Aids on. I said the high school one already. Space to make breakout sessions possible. No busing. Children expected to walk in 0 but below weather 1 mile. Lunch recess time too short. Lack of parking. Common spaces too few. Lack of space again. Lack of common resources. Poverty in our community. Small classroom sizes, square foot. No meeting room. Lack of secure entrance. Lack of natural light in classrooms. Downstairs classrooms with lack of windows. Class sizes, safe drop off and pickup. More art on the walls. Need more innovative programs and classes, life learning classes. Excuse me. Yeah, there. It's called humidity. Come on, let's go. There we go. More conference room in Lowell. Staff bathroom. Bathrooms again. Parking. Cuts. How do we keep cutting cuts again? Security. Secure entrance. I can walk right in and go anywhere. Come on. Playground. Cuts again. Cuts in staff. Lack of media areas. Secure entrance. No parking. Parking. Library. Old dirty tile in the bathrooms. Middle school music programs understaffed. To fuel, there you go, after school options in elementary school. ADA. Volunteers working with students in halls every day, no space. No elementary art. Time to get through curriculum, but time for kids to play, move as well, exercise. Funding. No safe pickup and drop off. And pick up and drop off, excuse me, and limited academic opportunities with space. There we go. Oh, yeah, there's always one. Way too much paperwork for Title I teachers and special ed teachers. There we go. I've heard about that. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to write that one. Oh, yeah. Oh, my eyes are. Okay, here's the next question. If you were going to write the headlines for the newspaper, and I mentioned this before, so our newspaper guy's ready to get an application out for anybody that does a good job. But if you were going to write the headlines for the newspaper for 10 years from now, what would you want it to say? What would you hope it would say? If you were going to write the headlines for the newspaper, what would you hope or want it to say about the Brainerd school system? That one always slows it down. I feel the same way. We have 12th Blue Ribbon Award to BPS. Age of condition of schools are excellent. Families flock to Brainerd due to academic excellence.
Brainerd School District meeting the needs of the community.
Yeah, that was such a good one. BPS celebrates a decade of increased graduation rates. ISD 181 has budget surplus. Stop giving us money. All right. I don't know who wrote that one, but you need to leave here real quick. All Blue Ribbon schools again. We've got academic growth excels in ISD 181. We've got another new facility approved for ISD 181. Brainerd enrollment up due to facilities. We got Brainerd Progressive Schools, Blue Ribbon Schools, Innovative Collaborative 181 is building onto their community. We got Brainerd School District creates innovative, engaging new space. Yet another national award-winning year for Brainerd. Board leads the way in innovation. AP classes, gifted programs, special needs being met. Brainerd schools lead the state in meeting needs of all students. Brainerd schools leading the state in academics. Blue Ribbon School again. BPS receives award. ISD, we can do it no matter the cost. BPS leads the nation in innovation. Language immersions brings families to Brainerd Public Schools. Brainerd Schools rated in the top 10 in the nation. Brainerd Schools #1 in they had state and crossed it out and then put nation. Brainerd High School drug and violence free. All new schools built in Brainerd. ISD 181 cares for the future generations through education, arts, and other activities in new and updated buildings. We got ISD building working agreement with parents, teachers, taxpayers, and construction fields. BPS is Minnesota's first all-net school district. There we go. Community supports our educators, funding, meeting the education needs. Cities look to Brainerd area for educational opportunities. Brainerd, leading the state in education. Leaders in academic technology. It is the best, underline, place for all students to learn. Amazing education legacy. It passed with flying colors. Yippee. Highest graduation rate. Elementary schools lead homecoming parade. Pregnancy rates drop. Sex education offered for all ages. BPS leads the way in career readiness. Anything else? Foreign language and engineering in elementary schools. Anything else with this one? Okay, next question. This one is more facility related, folks, and it's a two-part question. The first part of this question, though, is going to then be related to this building right here. But if you could improve and or repair this building, Lowell Elementary, that would help and enhance the education for the children here, what would it be?
Can you repeat those? You were excited about them.
The cookies, yeah. See, there's always, you feed them, yeah. No, if you could improve and or repair this particular building that would help enhance the education of the students in this building, what would you suggest or what would it be? This is a facility-related question to this particular building. If you could improve it and or repair it in some way to help enhance that education in this building, what would it be? Add classrooms, elementary basement. We got add new common spaces. Create or active classroom space. We got art space. We got more space. Space for collaboration. We've got another gym, large cafeteria, meeting room, storage space, larger classrooms. We have larger multi-purpose rooms to replace cafeteria. We've got all classes, spaces above ground. We've got add-on the new wing with office space, secure entrances to classrooms. Safe, secure entrance. Great. This one, okay, we got safe, secure entrance again. We have larger learning spaces. New media center, more light and space, more space, larger parking lots. We have invest in teachers' ongoing developments and support. We have add-on to building working elevator and larger cafeteria. Expand the building space. Bathrooms on every level. We got one-on-one space for students and educational assistants. More room in the library. Create new library area. Update cafeteria. No more styrofoam plates. Environmentally friendly products. Add on to create more learning space, flexible space, conference room. Add on addition, secure entrance, meeting rooms, open spaces, classrooms, more Phi-Ed space. Not facility, but must have better nutrition. That's fine, works. Safe entrance, parking space, bigger cafeteria. Safe and secure entrance, space, and then after that, classrooms, bedrooms, conference rooms, media with technology, reading nooks. It has to be completely gutted and added on to. Cafeteria, larger cafeteria cafeteria. More kids can eat at once and not have to eat as quickly. Teacher collaboration space, off-street parking, green space, solar, specialty areas, flexible classrooms, secure entrance, multi-purpose room, open classroom areas, grassy spaces on playground, more room for community events, become community center, larger bathrooms and adult bathrooms. We got more space, more classroom space, meeting space, second gym for movement. Keep Agate, Agate program with school. Working elevator. I have master crawling. What I'm going to do when I leave here. Thank God we're on the main floor. Second grade, or eating like underground holes. Grass. Tear down the schools in town and make one large school to accommodate all of the recommendations. Interesting one. Class offerings, larger cafeteria, more technology, improved bed space, art supply storage, functional library with more space, safe entrance, here we go, secure entrance with intercom system for entry, cafeteria with more natural lights, more storage spaces, staff bathrooms. Come on,
She's trying to make it pretty.
I know, isn't that something? And you can't do that with this process. You can't make it possible. Staff Well, we'll have a grading pretty now. Storage, horticulture space, secure entrance, more parking, newer media center, more space that allows for flexible learning areas, enrichment opportunities for all students, more variety of learning for opportunities, and a secure entrance. Media center upstairs and parentheses, sunlight, secure entrance, small space for small group teaching. The question, and sure enough, one of the high school teacher thought they should have lawns with a beverage thing in it and so forth and so on. So we can get off on track on that particular piece. Larger gym. Larger music stage, common planning space, staff bathrooms, because I know how this works. Whoops. Collaborative space for teachers, larger classrooms and storage, more office space, whoops. Second gym with multi-purpose, no basement class, lights, larger classroom. Anything, oh my goodness, I was going to say anything else. Separate health room, behavior intervention room. That's where you're going to go, Todd. Larger area for special ed students. We got heat recapturing and energy efficient upgrades. We've got composting and less lunch waste, decluttered classrooms, nursing room area, nursing room for working moms, better / roomier health room, yeah, that's what it says. Large playground area, and garden and grass. And larger student bathrooms, not standing in line so long, as long. Anything else? All right, second part of this question now. I'm not sure, yeah, really. Thank God there's a third part. Anyway, second part of the question. We talked about this facility right here. What about district-wide? You had some records, same first part of the question. If you could improve and or repair, but now we're talking district-wide. We just talked about this building, let's broaden it out. What would it be? Obviously, if you're familiar with some of the other areas, You'll be able to write on this. If not, that's okay as well. District-wide now. Oh, sure. This is in regard to facilities district-wide. Certainly education could be a piece of that, but it's district-wide now. We've touched on Lowell. Add new Baxter and Harrison schools. District-wide. Oh, Baker High School pool. And the first letter was throwing me a little bit there. That's fine. We got more parking. Parking drop-off. Parking drop-off at Forest View Middle School. That's not a problem, is it? Been there too many times during that time. On-duty security personnel. We have new auditorium, preserve historic buildings in some way, but repurpose as you, parentheses, we, as we can. Got more theater and performing arts. We got upgrade high school. We got new Central Elementary, move out of Westby, updated and attractive high school, pool with more lanes. We got new high school again, middle school pool. We got indoor tennis, update high school, select build sites based on student location, theater up to date, upgrade high school, early childhood facility. You guys are just going to keep you right here. New larger auditorium, keep up buildings for neighborhoods, close to neighborhoods. Improve Forest View, drop off and pick up. I've got again new pool, new Harrison School, new Baxter Elementary off of Big Highway and away from the graveyard. Located all elementary schools in neighborhoods not next to highways. They are solid structures. Do whatever it takes to preserve school. Adequate ECFE building, repair currently owned assets, more classrooms, pre-K, no 2 campuses at the high school, middle school pickup. These again are improvements, district-wide offices, drop off at Forest View. Think for the future, for the future, not past, with buildings, again more space, bigger high school pool, salt water instead of chlorine. We've got room to grow pre-K, improved transportation, not a separate high school, kids hauling books all around. We've got add to high school, demolish south campus, new official size pool, theater update, balance needs, wants, with being fiscally responsible. We got high school too large, kids get lost, disorganized building. We got needs of gifted kids met across all locations. Update high school new gym. Get something of get rid of South Campus. Busing. Look at the challenge chart. Most of them. Replace Washington with new efficient school. Bye-bye Lincoln. Tear down the elementary schools in town and build one large elementary to accommodate all recommendations. Early childhood facility, technology, secure entrances again, all buildings ADA, auditorium spaces needed, plays and performing arts, one high school, no walking between schools, place for music performances, better high school gym, children more than 1/4 mile need busing, needed performing arts areas in many locations, busing for all students traveling safely, appropriate secure funding, finances, performing arts areas in all schools, and keep elementaries small. Couple more. Community-based small elementary school. Sidewalks for walkers. Anything else? Okay. One last question. Busing for all, short route security, sidewalks for walkers. I read that one. No parking or driving between South Campus for North Campus. No South Campus, combined high school. Be proactive, not reactive. A vision, not underlined, not reactions. Anything else? Hang on. Eliminate pedophile, I just had to make sure I was reading this. Eliminate pedophiles / sex offenders away from schools. Pest control. Keep neighborhood schools. Anything else? Okay, we have one question left, folks. Hang with me here. Where am I? Okay, that's it. Here's the last question that you have. Lane has already alluded to this earlier in her presentation and so forth, but at some point in time, the school and the school board, they're going to get a ton of information from us, as well as a lot of variety of areas of assessments that's gone on in the district. As they look at that information, as they move forward, what advice would you give them as they start to analyze and make decisions relative to what the future will look like, or potentially what steps they're going to take from there? What advice would you give when I call the decision makers, that's your school board, superintendent, administrative staff, that come together and start talking about some of this stuff? What advice would you give them? Advice. What advice? Make the right choices for the students, even if it isn't popular. And in all honesty, folks, something very similar to that, I've probably seen that I don't know how many times, and how many different listening sessions we've done about looking at it from a student's perspective, or what's right for kids and that type of thing. That's come across loud and clear, especially from the kids, of course, but nonetheless, it's one of the things that you've seen repeated. Listen to people who are in the school regularly. Listen to kids. We look at a plan for the future. Take care of employees to keep the best. We've got student needs first. Include retirees and summer residents to get approval. Balance 4 A's, can't be 100% academic. Kids stay #1 in the plan. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Listen to employees and kids' ideas. Be fiscally responsible. Justify additional funding. Listen, underline. Think big. We will continue to grow in size. Plan for it. Remember, this is for our underline again, children for the future. Remember that this will affect the future. Stay within the annual budget. Pay teachers and support staff well. Keep the best. Kids for kids, underline. First, it's worth it. It's worth every penny of investment. Do what is best for kids always, with a smiley face. Listen to the teaching staff. Students first. Bring back Tipton and Talent coordinator position. Expand to the middle school. Take into consideration the expenses that come with fixing old buildings. Keep listening to public and staff. Be visionary in making decisions for long-term impact. Don't bring this clown back here again. Did you write that one? We just met. Encourage, I had that effect on you. Communication with community is a two-way street. Encourage diversity, when I was talking about the one Captain wrote about me. Don't look at it from a business, but as kids' businesses, our children and grandchildren. Kids need to be the main focus. Remember, kids are our future. Do not focus on elements that will not directly affect student benefit. Meet needs of all underlying students, gifted and challenged, and average. Figure this out. It is all, underlined again, of our responsibility. Ensure community involvement. Listen to kids and staff in the trenches. Build big enough for the future. Listen to teachers that know what they need. Put a lot of thought and planning into ongoing capital improvements and upkeep budgeting. Look out 10, 15, 25 years. Big picture. Get out in the public to get positivity for school built. Keep students as a central focus of decision making. Effective communication with everyone involved. Life skills are being left out. Cooking, for example, add curriculum to address this. How do you accommodate meeting all the recommendations of parking, natural light, more room, / larger playground in low-income areas? Don't get hung up on a negative feedback. That's really good advice, to be honest with you. Very good advice, because I've been through enough of these myself as a superintendent. I know why you get hung up on that. Develop an elementary program to help high-achieving students who are not a negative. Build the most energy-efficient buildings possible. Investments will pay off in the long-term cost savings. We've made some knee-jerk decisions in the past. Try to avoid that going forward. Teachers at all levels know what is needed. Listen to them. Involve the senior population for support. Yahoo! I'm with you. Anybody else? You got one? Okay. We have present two options to taxpayers, so we don't have all or nothing vote again. Anything else? Okay. That pretty much wraps it up. I'm shocked. But anyway, that pretty much wraps it up, folks. And going back to kind of regroup all of this piece, as we did the listening sessions throughout the district, these are the questions, or many of the questions that we asked in many phases. The one thing that we did with teachers, and those teachers that are in the room, you know what I'm talking about, we did what we called educational adequacy, and that was basically on spaces alone. We didn't necessarily ask them these questions, but we talked mainly about their spaces and the rooms they were in, or at least familiar with. And we went by and we looked at ND guidelines, we got input from them as well, we got input from the principal and so forth and so on, and that was the information that I presented earlier today to this group of teachers, as well as we have to the other teachers in the other buildings, and we will continue to do that. So other folks mean like your community groups, your educational assistants, cooks, custodians, they have these types of questions. So again, all of this comes together, and I want to thank openly to not only the staff that's in this building right now, but Todd and certainly Elaine and so forth. Because she's right, we've done a lot of listening sessions, and it took quite an effort to get that all scheduled and make it work. And it wouldn't have worked without their help. I mean, we wouldn't have pulled it off. So it's really been good for us. It's been a good run for us. We're excited to see what the rest of this goes down as far as the rest of this month. We will be done with what we call the second of 3 presentations, if you will, by the end of this month. We will have met with then every group that we intended to meet with, and then turned around and brought some results back. And the goal is, over the summer, there'll be people, community, school people and so forth, will be looking at all this data and so forth and so on. And then at some point next fall, there will be another presentation of some more detailed information coming back to groups. So certainly public, and I know staff will be involved with the public, please look for that. And that information will be forthcoming. It'll start to get a little more concrete at this point in time. But questions of me? Questions that I can answer for you? Yes?
Would that be like a more focused as far as revamping existing schools, Christian schools, elementary or something? Because I know that's also public right now. They're talking about, do we revamp our existing neighborhood schools, so many people want to hang on to that. And then also there's talk out there about possibly building a big elementary school. So once all this information comes in, does that all get gone through the process, et cetera, and then we have another session to kind of talk and focus more on where our goals would be?
Well, all of the information like that we're collecting tonight and at all of the listening sessions, whether it's the staff ones or the community ones, this will all come together and be presented to the board. And we'll have a really good idea of what the community thinks through that and also through responses like at other meetings and then on the communications like on the website and those types of things. If the board decides though that they want to do additional things beyond, and we'll be coming back again in the fall to keep people communicated through this process. But if the board feels that they need more information, that's at phase 3 we talked about, there might be some of those kinds of ideas coming back to give them the data so that they can make the right decision moving forward. The one thing that we talk about every single time we talk is that we want to come forward the very first time with the right plan. And the only way we're going to have the right plan is if we hear from the public and if we really listen to what our public has to say and what they feel that they can support, what they feel they need. So tonight was phenomenal. I can honestly tell you that, I've been through lots of these and never have I had this kind of reaction in one given listening session, and this was phenomenal. Thank you so much for all the input that you gave us, because it's all going to help us to make a good decision as we move forward. Thank you.
Any questions of me or the firm or where we're at with this process?
Any plans to put this on public access so a lot of people can see it instead of coming out of their homes to locations?
For what?
Public access TV, somebody to be able to see this.
To view this? No, Carla has been videotaping every single one of these presentations, and all of them will be on that website, blueprint181.org. Every one of them is there that we've had thus far of the public ones, and this one will be on there too. I don't know, we haven't really talked about public access, so that's another good idea. If you have suggestions for us, boy, we're open to them. Just please, if you have suggestions, because that's the only way we can. That's the only way we can do this right. Is if we are shared ideas that we might not be thinking about, and we can evaluate it and do it. So I like that idea. Yes.
Are you? I didn't see in the different listening sessions that you had any sort of outreach to the retired community.
We will be.
I survived the failed vote of what was it, 2007, 2008, whatever that was, and it was that there was a contingent of retired voters who really had to oppose the proposed. I forget the terminology. But I think definitely finding a way to reach out to people who no longer have students in the district to kind of try to avoid that contentious situation again.
That's a wonderful point, and it is something that we've talked a lot about, and we definitely will be going to some of the churches where we can reach those people, to community centers, those places. Right now, like the school-related ones, we're trying to get done before school is let out. And then this summer, we're going to have a lot of time where we can meet with all kinds of groups of people, organizations. I know at one of the listening sessions, even somebody talked about, what if I got a whole group of my friends together? And I said, summer's a great time to sit down and have a coffee party, or
just sit in with groups of people. If you have ideas, please let us know, because we want to reach as many people as we can and answer questions that people have. And like I said, we're not going to think of it all by ourselves, but if you've got ideas to help us, please share that with us, because we're very open and excited about it. Thank you, though, because I know a few people talked about that, but we need to make sure that we talk to those people. Thank you. Other ideas that you have? Well, one other thing that I want to make available to everyone tonight, if you're interested, I know that Todd and Earl are willing to take tours of Lowell. And if anyone would like to go around and just see the facilities and go to some of the places that you don't necessarily see when you drop children off in the morning or whatever, we'd love to show you the building. I know that Earl really enjoys giving these tours of all the buildings, and we're we want to make that accessible so that people understand what we're talking about when we put up a lot of these post-it notes. And then from myself, and I know from the Board of Education, boy, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. This turnout was fabulous. Just the input that you gave us tonight was wonderful. And, you know, we can't do this alone. And this really, you know, a school is a whole community. It's all about feeling like family, and it's all of us working together. And we really need, we want everybody involved in this process, and so I'm so happy that you're here. And please continue to get involved in whatever way you're interested in doing it. We want everybody engaged in this process, so we can do it together. So thank you so much for being here tonight and for your unending contributions to our school. Thanks.
Lane, can I jump in real?
Absolutely.
Before we end, no. 18 years ago, I took this position, and the outgoing principal handed me my keys, and the master key was a skeleton key. And I thought, oh, this is just a joke, 1939. No, he said, this is the key for the building. And we ended up getting new locks probably 5 years later, because you could go to Ace, and for $1.49, anyone could access it. Was the same key that I used. The locks changed, but the building hasn't. We're really at a crossroads. We truly are. Not just at Lowell, but district-wide. And I look at the people that are here. We need to make this exponentially grow. Meaning, I tell 5 people, you tell 5 people, and those 5 people tell 5. We need this thing to get out. And Lane's exactly right. We have to have as many people get knowledgeable about where we're at, what we're dealing with. Love to take people on a tour. Most of you know our building fairly well, but if you haven't had a chance to see the whole building, we're very excited to do that for you. So again, thank you as well for coming tonight.